welcome to Tourne-Sol Cooperative Farm. And Tourne-Sol is actually French for it's French for sunflower,
Okay.
and it's like girasol in Spanish.
Yeah.
And it's a play on words because it both means turning towards the sun, but also turning the soil. And
Okay.
that's what the hyphen does.
Gotcha.
So we started in the fall of 2004. That's when we planted our first garlic crop, and we've been running ever since. And we have 5 founding members who are with us. I'm one of the 5 founding members. We met during university studying agriculture at McGill University in the West Island of Montreal, and we worked for a number of different farms, in our, I guess, apprenticeship phase. And suddenly there was a point where we kind of wanted to be calling our own shots, and we were all around the same period of our life at that point. And so 5 of us decided to start a farm together, and it kind of happened, semi-planned and also semi-haphazardly. One of the things that happened was Reed, who had been looking for a summer job, was speaking to some grain farmers who build a lot of their own machinery about working for them, and they weren't looking for any employees, but they had land to rent.
Okay.
And then I had been talking with Reed about a project, maybe about growing seed or something, and it kind of all just coalesced into one thing. And then so we started, the 5 of us, I guess in the fall of 2004, and which 2005 was our first full growing season, and we've been running ever since. At this point, we have 6 employees in addition to the 5 of us, so there's 11 of us who work. It's probably about 7 people full-time. And in the winter, the full-time, there's planning and that kind of stuff. But also, because we have a seed company, that helps fill employment.
Yeah.
Our staff, the longest running is about 5 years with us, and we're at a point now where the staff we're talking about some of the staff about maybe becoming future co-op members, or present co-op members, because we're at that time. And so we're a worker co-op. So a worker co-op is a judicial structure, sort of similar to a corporation. In the sense that there's a board of directors and limited liability and that kind of thing, but separate. But voting power. There's one vote per person, independent of number of shares owned in the business. So it's a very democratic institution. Profit is usually distributed to the co-op members in function of hours they worked, not necessarily in shares that they own, though it can also be a combo of those.
Gotcha.
We chose the co-op model initially for ideological reasons. But over time, it's really proven to be a good structure for us in all regards. And I think it's helped us not have a hierarchical structure, but more of a broad decision-making capability where everybody feels they have a voice. So we're predominantly a vegetable farm. At this point, we're doing 400 to 450 CSA shares a week. And then we also go to a farmer's market. And that's... we also do cut flowers, and so all of that is probably about 75 to 80% of our business. We also have seeds, which is the remaining 20 to 25%, depending how you add it out. And when we started off in our first year, we did about 110 CSA shares. We had a couple farmers markets, but we were also growing a little bit of seed, and in that case, we were growing like 4 or 5 tomato seed varieties on contract to other seed companies while doing some of our own seed saving. And I had a friend who was growing seed on contract for other people prior to that, so that's how we got into that. And because we were saving seed and we were selling a little bit, over year 1, we sold a couple of varieties. Year 2, we had maybe 20 varieties that we packed up in packets, and we went to some seed fairs and sold those. And probably within about 5 or 6 years, the retail component was interesting about it. And the seed business has been growing about 50% a year for the last few years to kind of get to this point of 20-25% of our gross sales.
Oh wow!
And so it's the veg is growing too, but there's not the same enthusiasm for growth on our part. We're trying to stabilize it and make it work at its current scale, whereas the seed, we'd like to get it a lot bigger and then see if we want to scale or plateau. So that's our farm. So with the co-op structure, and it's taken us a long time to really work it all out, but one of the big things we've done is each person is in charge of a different department of the farm, and has different responsibilities with it. And it took a while to really understand what that meant, but a lot of that has to do with being able to delegate and to let somebody do something in a way that you think might be different than the way you'd like to do it. And that was a learning curve to that initially. And so I guess concretely, we have a board of directors that's made up currently of the 5 of us.
Yep.
And but as we have new members, it's going to start to change, which is exciting.
Yeah.
But so the 5 of us will meet sort of once a month to talk about stuff. So we have a person, who manages the greenhouse, and she takes care of all the potting supplies and the heating it, any kind of modifications and stuff. If she wanted to do something major that was different, that would cost a couple $1,000s, she'll talk to the rest of us.
Yeah.
But if it's small things that she's doing, she just, it's her own domain.
Yeah.
And so each of us have different areas. Initially, it was kind of, specific areas, often of expertise, or someone has to do something, so it gets given to somebody. At this point, we have an organizational chart with like clear departments, and we have positions underneath those departments, and in some cases employees underneath those departments, but sometimes some of us are underneath, we have like a few different roles in that organizational chart, so we are both bosses and employees to other people.
Okay.
And I think the last 2-3 years, we've really done a lot of work on the organizational chart part as we've been getting ready to start welcoming new members to the co-op. Because kind of, when it's 5 people who know each other and have been through rough parts and good things, you get a good working dynamic. And you get to a point where you can make decisions, you can do stuff well, there's always sore spots. But when you start to add new people into it, there's a lot less intuitive part. So with that, that's where we're trying to really get a system down for how we make decisions, who's accountable in what regards. We've discovered there's a lot of little gray areas, so try to clear up, bring light to those gray areas. And yeah, so that's kind of how the co-op works. Communication is key. Yeah,
you just got to bring it out to the open if you have an issue, and
and there will always be issues, but they change over time. I think early issues had a lot to do with money's a big one. How much time people work is another big one. So those are issues that can just bottleneck any other kind of discussion that you might have. And so things that we kind of early on we decided that each hour that one of the co-op members, and this is when there was just 5 of us. Yeah. So we all had the same seniority, but each hour that one of us would work is the same as any other person's hour. If you're doing stuff in the office, or if you're hand weeding carrots, or if you're in the greenhouse, each hour counts as an hour. And initially we thought each person will log their hours, and then we'll tabulate that at the end of the year. Logging hours is not easy. And so what we've instead done is we have a schedule. We have a start time, we have an end time, we have a lunch time, and we have a few like floating or flexible hours to work for people to work in the evening or time to wrap stuff up. And in the winter, it's a little bit more complicated than that because we do work through the winter and some of us are more regular than others. But we've kind of found ways to get a good approximation of hours without having to track everything. Yeah. And that's meant in part, it's also helped us rationalize some of our work. If you have a 5 o'clock end time, if you work beyond that, you recognize that you're working beyond that. Yeah. And so it's helped us, focus on quality of life. Yeah. I'm answering. What's communication? Is that what I'm talking to you about? Yeah. So those are some of the big things we had to tackle. But then once we got those pieces out of the way, then it really got into talking about communication style, how you express yourself when you're frustrated or angry, how you take ownership of your decisions. Whose fault is it really? Yes. And often it's your own fault. And so that stuff was more of a process to work through. And we hired a couple of people to help us. One was we used a nonviolent communication facilitator. Okay. So it's a nonviolent communication, or NVC. Yep. Is a communication style. Should I explain this?
This is great. Yeah.
So NVC is a communication style that works on, there's 4 steps, and it kind of goes out to an observation of the facts and works through your feelings to what your need is that isn't being met or being met, and why that makes you feel that way. And once you get to that point, you're able to make a request from somebody. Yeah. And it's a mechanical procedure, and we don't really speak that way. But understanding the concept really changed the way we thought about how we communicated. Yep. And it often realize that often our feelings and emotions have more to do with the fact that you haven't slept, or it's really hot, or you're just not getting the work done, and less to do that somebody else having done something that might have triggered that.
Yeah.
And that's and not to say that somebody can't do something that might piss me off, but it does put more ownership on managing my own emotions and responsibility. Yeah. And so we worked with an NVC trainer, and that was really great, and we worked with it all together. What we found in the communication workshops is that everybody in the team has to be there.
Yeah.
Otherwise, it's one person learns it and then tells other people what they think it is. And
now, other things one of the things I've been diving into lately has been some of the personality profiling, like the Myers-Briggs and the Enneagram. Have you heard of the Enneagram? I've
heard about both of them.
Yeah.
We did a little bit of that testing early on. We didn't go through with it, but we've just begun to talk about maybe bring it in. Not everybody is as enthusiastic about it.
Yeah.
It's one of the things that happens. So some of that stuff gets a little bit almost spiritual, and it rubs some people a bit funny.
Yeah.
So,
and for me, some of that stuff was really eye-opening, and it was a little scary, but then it also made me understand myself better. And that was the key, is just if you understand yourself better, then you understand why you behave certain way in certain situations.
Yeah.
And that's really freeing.
Yeah. And I can see that. And I think also you can explain to people how you'd like to be communicated with.
Yeah.
And that can just bypass some of the challenges.
Cool.
Yeah. Another tool we use is holistic management. We did a 6-day holistic management workshop. This was probably in our 5th or 6th year. So the 5 of us. So I guess I should mention, of the 5 of us, there's 2 couples, and Fred's wife works off farm. But for this holistic management workshop, she joined us also. So there were 6 of us were to work this together, and it was a fascinating experience. Where we built out our holistic goal together, which in itself has a lot of value. But I think it really let us, over those 6 days, understand that if there's something you don't like in your business right now, you can change it.
Yes.
And where we were at about 5 or 6 years in, we weren't a startup anymore. We were kind of established.
Yep.
And there were still things that we didn't like, and it's kind of our fault at that point, Yeah. And not everything changes overnight, but it really gave us a realization that, we can plan things and function the way that we want them to be.
Yeah.
And in our early years, there was really a strive for profitability on the farm. Looking at how much money you can make, per square foot or bed foot or all that stuff, and it paid off. We were profitable early on. We were paying ourselves a salary. We were very happy with that. But it was really the focus was on this profitability. And after the holistic management, the focus became on quality of life. And profitability is one piece amongst so much more in that. And part of the thing that makes it easier to start talking about quality of life is when you are making money. Because if you're not making money, it kind of takes over the conversation.
Well, the stress aspect of that just blows up.
It's explosive, yeah. But that really changed all our planning subsequently in the recent, that's 7-8 years since we did that workshop, or 5 to 7 years since that workshop. It's really focusing on what we want, and so those are the big things that really had an impact on how we communicate as a farm.
Cool.
And it's an ongoing process.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.